It gives me great pleasure, of course, to introduce our forum chairman. We have Philippos, who is a business strategist and author. He joins us on the stage. And we, of course, have Harris Xenophondos, who is head of Global Strategic Partners at Viva Wallet. So thank you to our chairman. So I leave the stage to Philippos, who is in your capable hands. Thank you all again so much for being here. Let's enjoy, let's network, and let's have a good event. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good morning. Welcome to our distinguished guests, incredible speakers. Wow, we have such an agenda today and tomorrow. It has perplexed my mind, and putting together this opening speech was like a puzzle for me. Can I have my slides, please? But it has occurred to me that the CFO, who is the star of this conference, the CFO of tomorrow, in fact, only has two overriding duties, two overarching duties, and everything else pretty much falls within the substrata and the subcategories of these two overriding duties. And which are these two duties that the CFO of tomorrow is called to perform? The first one is the ability to place their house in order. That's the first overriding duty of tomorrow's CFO. And when I think of a structure of order, I think of the Greek Parthenon. Emblematic, timeless, solid, inspiring, resilient. Unlike many organizations today which are succumbing under the pressure of the times, I'd rather have this as a symbol of order and structure. So let's see which are the pillars of order, which are the pillars that tomorrow's CFO has to have in mind in order to have their house in order. First of all, it's the role itself. The modern CFO is no longer a mere treasurer. That was a role of the past. Is no longer someone who is backward-looking. Is no longer the coordinator of the back office, balancing numbers, balancing books. The CFO of tomorrow is a strategist, a fierce communicator, an influencer, somebody who has to learn how to engage in public relations, at least with creditors and regulators. Tomorrow's CFO has to be supported by elite teams of professionals, which means that they have to be team leaders as well, a whole different breed of a skill set, with the need to master the human condition. Tomorrow's CFO has to be able to synthesize the right composition of teams. That's why we'll be seeing later on the discussion on inclusive finance, diverse finance, to be involved in even in quasi-HR functions. So by having elite teams in place of qualified experts, yes, the CFO can create the space that is needed of them so as to deploy the strategic function that their cross-functional role expects of them. And by having elite teams in place, then we can look at compliance in a more holistic and efficient manner, because compliance is the other key pillar. Financial. We're looking at all sorts of financial requirements, standards being put in place. In the next couple of years, we will be having even ESG standards, as we know, as the accounting people know. So there is a conundrum of multifaceted standards and requirements in the sphere of compliance: legal, regulatory, tax, financial, AML. AML is in the compliance officer's field, but still, in the big picture of things, all these things affect and influence not only the job description, but the spirit of the CFO function as well. So by having elite teams in place, And by having the ability to comply, we can build robust procedures, systems, processes, so as to allow the structure of order that we've seen to have a solid foundation. By having solid procedures, systems, and processes in place, and enveloping them in the right matrix of technological systems and modules, hence we are moving to the technology pillar now, we are able to place our house in order, but with a caveat, because we also need to understand that sustainability is no longer a wishy-washy thing. It's no longer nice to have thing, CSR, we all like to consider these things in the field of wishy-washy things. Sustainability now lies in the heart of finance, as we shall see in the sessions later on, with standards coming up, with the role of the CFO being affected because the ability to raise funds, to find investors, to manage costs is affected by the upcoming windfall of the ESG and the sustainability principles in practice. And how is the CFO concerned with all these things, in particular tech and sustainability? Well, the CFO will be called to approve major CapEx investments and have expectations of return of investment in all these things. That's why the CFO role is multifaceted, cross-functional. The CFO has to be able to scan the operational environment and to be a player in it, an active player. Is no longer a static role. Okay, so we will be looking at most of these things in the sessions that are following and in the panels that are following. That's why I'm providing this synopsis. And the next question is, we've seen the first duty is to place our house in order. So what's the second duty? Once we place our house in order, then we move where we are needed the most. We move to stand guard on the edge of uncertainty as CFOs, to stand guard on the edge of chaos, as I like to say. This is where the true calling for tomorrow's cross-functional CFO lies. And what better symbol for chaos than the COVID mask? Financial crisis, outliers, pandemics, political instability. We have the crisis in Ukraine as well now. Supply chain disruptions, digital disruptions, the great resignation, pressures on retention and turnover levels of employees. All this cocktail, once again, brings the CFO on the first table in the discussions. In the financial crisis, the CFO is being called, has been traditionally called, to manage costs, to curb the expense increases, the spikes in expenses, to raise funds, to find liquidity, to renegotiate borrowing costs. And for the most opportune companies that have seen opportunities in the middle of chaos, contemplating major acquisitions, preparing valuations, preparing data rooms, preparing financial due diligence reports, engaging in tax optimization, the CFO is in the heart of these things. Not to mention the unprecedented inflation that we're currently facing as a cocktail or a combination between COVID and everything else, and the Ukraine crisis as well. So the CFO really is in the heart of all action. And if I can summarize how I see the true profile of tomorrow's CFO, I would say that like the mythical Colossus of Rhodes, tomorrow's CFO having one foot firmly planted in order and security, and the second in chaos, opportunity, adventure, and growth, can be a catalyst of change and the steward of the thriving organization of tomorrow. So this is I have tried to crystallize some of the themes that will be touched during this really inspiring conference. I really hope that you enjoy it, that you become both wiser and more relaxed. And Thank you.